Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to episode 3 of the Seven Figure or Bust podcast. My name is Christian Brindle. I'm your host, and this is our first ever interview episode of the podcast.
First, yeah, I feel like
First.
royalty right now.
Well,
Thank you.
that's because you are good, sir. Um, so many of you that are watching this, I'm sure, know who my guest here is today. But just in case that you don't, I will give him a brief introduction. My guest today is Glen Shelton, owner and operator of Lead Heroes, Hire Heroes, my co-host of another podcast that we do together called Taco Tuesday. Let's talk about insurance. Someone that my organization has done a tremendous amount of business with over the years. Glen runs a completely virtual call center based mostly in the Philippines, and his business employs over 100 people, and which is mind-boggling to me. And his business to me is one of the most unique and interesting business models that I've come across in the industry. And so yeah, just a pleasure, always a pleasure to have him on and kind of be able to pick his brain and have amazing conversations about business, insurance, and everything else in between. So thanks for taking the time.
Hey, I'm super excited to be your first guest on this new podcast. I think the mission and direction that you shared with me kind of offline, I'm a huge supporter of. I watched that first episode that you did that you kind of got into the preface of why you're doing this. And I think honestly, I'd like to take a second and kind of recap it. I mean, obviously, hey, seven figures or bust. You mentioned specifically, for those of you who may have skipped to this episode or you didn't hear that previous episode, he mentioned specifically that six figures, $100,000 a year, it doesn't cut it anymore.
Yeah.
And that honestly hit me right between the eyes, you guys. And I'll just kind of take a second and share a personal story. When I was freshly married as a young man, I was 22 years old. All I dreamed about was bringing home six figures in income. If I could make $100,000 a year, I'm rich, right? Like
You've
that.
made it. You've
You've
made it.
made what expenses could possibly go unpaid if I'm netting $100,000 a year, right? And that was, and I say that personally, but the reality is that was kind of like a shared motif, right? There was a collective around this. Like everyone kind of had this conversation. Oh, he's making six figures. Oh, like
Mm-hmm.
that was real, guys. Like I'm aging myself by even bringing this up, right? It feels like it's so long ago, but those days are gone. They're well gone. And if you have a family like Christian and I do, and you have a wife and children that you have to support, it's well gone that $100,000 makes you rich, handles all your expenses. $100,000 probably in today's inflation impacted society. I mean, you're looking at median to below median income, and depending on the city you live in, and some of these cities have insanely high cost of living, it's honestly trending more towards below average. Um, Now, I say that it there's a lot of ways you can kind of depict these stats. You could obviously look at just bare bone expenses. Yeah, if you just want to pay rent and you just want to buy food and you're not doing any, maybe you have one car. Like obviously you could try to really count your pennies and stretch it, but we
No
all have stuff.
kids.
Yeah, no kids, and we all have stuff that we like. We all want to go on trips. Like we all have like basic things that aren't necessarily a necessity that we still want to spend money on. You know, um, Christmas, right? We just had Christmas. Who didn't put a bunch of presents under the tree, right? Yeah, exact guilty. So, when I say like trending towards below median, I'm talking about including those types of expenses as well. I'm not talking about just the core necessities. So I kind of wanted to save myself before potentially some listeners on the podcast jumped down my throat and said, $100,000 is not poverty. What's going on? So, but who knows what's 10 years from now look like too, though, right? If
Yeah.
it's trending down, if that's the direction, right? We're talking about the 10-year trend. Well, what does 10 more years look like?
Yeah. I think there's so many people that I've gotten to know in business, and I know you have as well, that have said kind of a similar battle cry to where when they first got started in business, their first target was, if I could just get to six figures, if I could just get to 100,000 a year in income. And every single person I've ever talked to that's gotten there and above and beyond that, when they talk about it, they say, the first thing I realized is how little money it really is. I'm like, oh, is this it? And I think that reigns true so much more today than ever. But I remember distinctly, when I was new in starting my business and starting my career, that was my target as well. Six figures. This is where I need to be. If I could only get there, then everything will be peaches and cream. Everything will be amazing. I'll never have to worry about money again. Then once I got there, I'm like, oh, like this doesn't stretch as far as I thought it did.
No kidding. No kidding. And on the business side too, expenses can swallow that money so fast. I was just talking about personal expenses before, but you're talking about six figures, and maybe you're a 1099, you're an independent contractor, or you're a LLC owner. $100,000 is even less.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah, 100%. So one thing I want to start off this episode with, something that haven't done before in any other interview forums, and I think it's just this fun little thing that we're gonna do. We're gonna do a lightning round with Glen.
Oh,
okay. So let's start this off with a lightning round. Okay, so I'm gonna give you two choices. First thing that comes to your head, which one do you pick? Okay.
Okay. I like this.
Coke or Pepsi?
Coke. It's not even close.
Blackjack or Texas Hold'em?
Blackjack.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's my choice too.
Okay. So yeah, I like to play Texas Hold'em like with friends. So like, I don't know if you want to. If am I allowed to elaborate on the lightning round?
You are allowed to.
Am I breaking the rules? Okay.
No, you're allowed to.
Okay, Texas Hold'em. If I'm like with friends, absolutely, or like a private party. If I'm at the casino, it's blackjack though, for sure.
100%. I'm terrible at blackjack. I'm pretty good at I'm terrible at Texas Hold'em. I'm decent at blackjack.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say I'm good. I'm decent.
Yeah.
So that's what I like blackjack better, because I don't lose my shorts when I play it as much.
Yeah.
All right. Beer or wine?
Wine.
Taco Bell or Del Taco?
Taco Bell. Come on. Come on.
Rihanna or Beyonce?
Probably Riri.
Riri. Jordan or LeBron?
Under my umbrella, Ella, a. Jordan. And if anybody says LeBron on this podcast, I want you to publicly shame them immediately.
Just end it right there.
It's not even close, guys. Honestly, it's like two different. It's like trying to compare Earth to Mars. Like, what are you saying?
Andrew Tate or Logan Paul?
Oh my God, Logan Paul, I guess. I honestly am impressed about his transition of his career, guys. Andrew Tate. So you made that post the other day, and here's the thing with him, and I don't want to get controversial here, but I think my take on him is he's one of those people that just wants to say the craziest stuff to grab attention. And that is a legitimate strategy in the content space. I see people who execute. I think Elon Musk is doing the same strategy. I think he's just saying crazy stuff sometimes to try to get the eyeballs. Attention is currency, right? Like how big your audience is, how many people are watching your videos, listening to your podcast, reading your posts. Like that is a form of currency in today's society. So, if I had to pick, I think Logan Paul. I actually think he just got. I don't know if you just saw, but Logan Paul just became the Cleveland Browns social media director. So like he just got hired by the Cleveland Browns. So you have a YouTuber who became a professional boxer, who is now in charge of an NFL franchise's media, at least on the social media side. But not even close. Again.
And in the WWE now.
He's doing WWE now
he's
too?
in WWE now.
Wow, I didn't even know.
He's everywhere. He's everywhere.
He's everywhere. To everything to everyone.
Yes. Eminem or Jay-Z?
Eminem.
Avatar 1 or 2? This is only if you've seen 2.
I haven't seen 2. It was on my list. I didn't get to it.
Okay, we skip this one then. Brady or Montana?
Uh,
Tom Brady or Joe Montana?
Probably Brady, but I can't even tell you stats on Montana like off the top of my head. But you just kind of have to like love or hate Brady. And I don't really love him. You just kind of have to respect the GOAT, I guess, in that
Mm-hmm.
scenario.
And I think with Montana, like he's with those iconic 49ers teams, right?
Yeah.
Like with Jerry Rice and everything like that. And they won Super Bowls, but not as many as Brady. And then I think with the era he's in, the stats are watered down because there's more physical defense and
Totally different game. Yeah, that's such a big time. What about Brock Purdy though? Holy cow, dude.
oof, oof,
Rookies just coming out on fire. The Niners
just
look like they're ready to take the world.
just cooking people.
Yeah.
Um, Drake or The Weeknd?
Ooh, I like both of them. If I had to pick one, probably The Weeknd, but I don't. That's like a tie in my book. I honestly like a lot of people hate Drake. I don't get the hate for Drake. I
I
actually
love
like
Drake.
his. Yeah, I love Drake. I was just singing yesterday. Started from the bottom, now we're here. Started from the bottom, now my whole team here. So, yeah, I love Drake. There's
Oh
gonna be
my
some great
gosh.
clips you can take out of this and
Yeah,
just
they're there. They are.
humiliate. Yeah, you can just humiliate me
Run them
later.
as ads.
Yeah,
Joe Rogan or Mr. Beast?
Joe Rogan. Although I love Mr. Beast and totally respect everything he's done, I just pick Joe. I'd listen to his podcast on a pretty regular basis, just entertainment value, educational, and
Mm-hmm.
just fun content to consume, in my opinion.
Yep, agreed. Final one:
Okay.
Will Smith or Chris Rock?
You really picked some controversial ones here. Chris Rock. I
Yeah,
think Will Smith, as much as I enjoy a lot of his movies and content, I think he's privately crazy a little bit. Like I think there's something going on. And his wife, like, have you ever?
Scientology crazy.
Yeah. Well, have you ever watched or listened to his wife's
Oh,
podcast?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That what's it
Yeah.
called? Red Table.
Round table. Yeah, I was gonna
Red.
say round. It's Red Table though. I think it's Red
Yeah.
Table.
Oh, I've
Yeah.
watched a couple of them. I couldn't stop watching. I
Yeah.
got sucked in.
Chris Rock, Madagascar, done.
Yeah.
Book it.
That brings us to the end of the lightning round. Um,
Oof. Ding ding ding.
some good answers. Some good
Thank you.
answers. So I have a lot of stuff I want to cover with you and not a ton of time to do it in. So I'm
Yeah.
just going to kind of jump right into
Let's
some of
do
these
it.
topics here. So one thing I wanted to start off with was when in your business model, and this is something that I think a lot of people in all different kinds of industries, whether it be insurance or something else, have a lot of interest in. Like I told you a story off camera today about how I had somebody come and emergency dig me out of my house with a snowplow.
Right.
Probably called 11 businesses
Right.
first. Two of them had a Filipino, it sounded like a Filipino virtual assistant answering the phone.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I was like kind of interested.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, okay. They couldn't help me, but but
But it
but
worked, right?
right. And I mean, I was able to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Most of the others I couldn't, I got a voicemail, which turned me
Yeah.
off even more. So I find that it's a big interest for a lot of different kind of
Sure.
businesses. What do you feel like maybe some misconceptions are about overseas employees?
Oh, that's a I don't even know if I have time to even start this conversation because there's so many. Um, and it's just a laundry list. There's this idea that it doesn't work at all.
Right.
There's a lot of people that don't believe in it at all. And that one I always kind of laugh at because when you have these major companies, AT&T, JP Morgan Chase, I mean, that's just like two massive companies off the top of my head. We could keep going, but there's an insane amount of companies here in the United States who have opted to offshore their call centers for
Mm-hmm.
customer service, for all sorts of different things. And it obviously works well. Otherwise, these massive companies wouldn't be doing it, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to put their reputation, their brand, their multi-billion dollar, we're talking about seven figures today on the podcast. These businesses are
10 figures, 9, 10
11,
figures.
12.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, yeah, I mean,
I got to count the
huge.
zeros.
Yeah, I mean, huge, huge. So it definitely works. I think The other misconception is that any, there's any level of accent is like this automatic detractor or makes it so like a phone call with a Filipino doesn't work. And again, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't it work. I honestly think, and I have a theory that a slight accent offers some intrigue sometimes to the point where that person is more likely to hang on the line. And now that accent could be Southern, it could be Australian. I'm not saying it has to be a Filipino accent, but I almost think sometimes it can hook people. So that's my number one. Um, how much time do I have on? You want me to keep going?
Like take you can take as much time as you want. I think
Yeah,
because I think it's a deep question, that
yeah,
that you know we can have a bit of a conversation about, because to me, I know for us, my first experience working with Filipinos was working with Lead Heroes, when with doing call campaigns for us and things like that, and
yeah,
we've had great success with it.
yeah,
We have far better success than we do with with a lot of different kind of lead options that we might use or have used in the past. And then of course, using a virtual assistant from the Philippines
yeah.
has been, for me, it's like a breath of fresh air, and in so many ways. And I feel like most of the people that have this negative connotation probably have never had any real encounters with any,
Or
maybe.
very limited. Like they
Yeah,
tried something one time for a few days, it didn't go how they anticipated, and so now they're jaded. And
yeah,
I see a lot of that. Um, I think the other thing when you're dealing with an overseas virtual assistant, or really any virtual assistant, it could be someone stateside too, is this concept that, if I can't see them, how can I manage them?
right.
And kind of the way that I grew to a seven-figure company was through a different mindset of, instead of I need to see this person clock in and sit in front of me every day for them to do their job for me, the mindset that I took from day one, that anyone listening to this podcast can also take into their business, is these are the tasks that I need done, and this is how much money I'm willing to pay to have these tasks done. And if you just hold on to that, you just hold on to that and you let everything else go. It might be scary, you guys. I remember being terrified. I was terrified the first time. Guys, I had no money at the time when I first hired my first virtual assistant. And I'm thinking I'm going to spend a couple $100 a week with a part-time assistant that I can't even see them work. And I
Hmm.
honestly, there was definitely several moments in the very first hire and the first couple hires, because the first hire didn't go well, where I almost threw in the towel. I almost quit before I even started because I fell into this old belief system that someone needs to come clock in and sit in front of me to be successful for this to work. But I tried this out. I said, you know what? These are the tasks I need done. I have done these tasks, so I know the quality that's acceptable. It doesn't have to be my level of quality, but there is a minimum success quality. This is how much money I'm willing to spend. And that was it. And nothing else matters. If they can get everything done with quality and they're actually spending half their time watching Netflix, who cares? Why does that matter? Why does that matter? It doesn't. It doesn't matter, you guys. And there's probably some people who are going to freak out hearing that. Like, oh, I'm going to pay a virtual assistant. They're watching Netflix. Why does it matter? It doesn't. I don't care. I know for a fact I have some really, really great employees who they take liberty at certain times, like internal management, where maybe they take an hour break, when I'm paying them to only take a 30-minute break, right? And I'm not saying this happens often, but there's times where stuff like that happens. But guess what? At the end of the day, when I'm honestly going to measure success, I mean, I audit my employees all the time. I'm always auditing them, top to bottom. I'm looking at through that lens. That's how I'm measuring it is, okay, this is how much money I'm spending. these are the tasks that this person has to get done. This is the minimum level of success that's acceptable for these tasks. Are are we okay? Okay, yeah. And honestly, guys, most of the time, like I just painted this picture that sounded really negative. Most of the time, everyone's far exceeding through that lens. Most of the time, this minimum success and the amount that I'm paying to get those results, most people are way, 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 way up. They're doing like triple my expectation. That's like
Yeah.
the average. Yeah, that's the average return I get. So I spent a lot of time talking about like this negative idea that people are goofing off because you can't see them. And I'm just saying, yeah, it might happen sometimes. I mean, I don't doubt it. We have a ton of tools to manage people at Lead Heroes and Hire Heroes where, we can see their computer and what they're doing, but they have a TV on at their house. I don't have cameras in all of my employees' houses, not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. But there's stuff going on. We're humans. We have lives, guys. Like we have kids, we have families, we have stuff that comes up, and we have emergency. Like we get sick, like stuff happens. And so I think there's a lot of control freaks who love to micromanage people, and you're really just shooting yourself in the foot at the end of the day.
It's interesting too that that you mentioned that, because I have observed, with our virtual assistant that works with my company, that I've never had anybody work harder. She
Right.
works. She'll be responding to messages on, our social media accounts when she's off the clock. She'll be, posting
Right.
quotes when she's off the clock,
So
things like that.
Right. So let's flip the script here, okay? So let's pretend we are the overseas virtual assistants, okay? What's our number one fear when dealing with our employer?
Probably losing the opportunity.
Getting fired. That paycheck is gone next week, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if that's your number one fear, why would you not why would you not be hitting those tasks as hard as you can, or trying to do your job to the point where you can get rid of that fear, right? So that's been, again, my experience is that to get rid of this fear that they're going to lose their paycheck, their stability, paying their family, right? Handling the income for their family, they're the primary earner. To get rid of that fear, they're doing exactly what Christian just said. They're going way above and beyond. They're making themselves a huge asset, not a liability for you and your company. They're working off the clock. The very first Filipino I hired worked 80 hours when I paid her for 40 hours. She literally put in double. And I told her, I said, I can't pay you 80 hours. And she's like, I don't
And
care.
she just do it anyway.
She did it to make a point to me. And she's still with me today because of this. I mean, again, it was everything, I had hired people from all around the world. And this first Filipino I hired, it was like, I can pay you for 40 hours a week. And she's like, I'm going to work 80 this week. And I said, I cannot pay you for 80 hours. And she said, I don't care. Like, I'm here to do my job, and it needs to be done at the highest level I could possibly can, because I'm going to make myself irreplaceable to you. I'm going to get rid of this fear that I'm going to get fired and lose my income and not be able to support my family. And that's 9 out of 10 times. That's what happens, guys, with these virtual assistants that are overseas. Now, there are bad apples, right? Just like you can hire.
Just like with anything.
Yeah, Christian's hired tons of people. And there's always, sometimes you get some bad apples. You get somebody who comes in and they're really slacking off. They're not even hitting that bare minimum of these are the tasks that I need done, and you're not even close, right? And they're goofing off huge. So I think you just have to kind of take that with a grain of salt and look at the big picture.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I think it's one of those things where, you and I have had plenty of conversations about where, there's a problem with somebody, right, that might be working. And then, the conversation then leans over into what's their level of productivity? How much are they getting done? And if the conversation is they're just getting by and they're slacking off, then that's problematic.
Bingo.
Right. But if they were just absolutely crushing it in their role, whatever it is, you might be able to overlook one or two things here or there. And I think that goes for people in the States, people out of the States, virtual workers, in-house workers. And I think it's just a worker component. I don't think it's necessarily just a virtual assistant format or any, I think it's just an employee format.
I don't want to spend we could easily talk about just this topic for another 10 hours, but the last thing I'll say about this is like, if we look at like really successful salespeople, I used to work at Verizon Wireless way back in the day. The top sales reps would goof off unbelievable, like guys, like no call, no show to work, like, oh, hey, I've been here for 2 hours, gotta go home, peace, like stuff that you would fire a normal employee in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. Like, you know, I could go on, but the point is, because their numbers were so great, it didn't matter. The manager would be like, okay, if you gotta go, you gotta go. See ya. Like, because they exceeded their quota every single month, and most reps couldn't do that. So, why if the productivity's there and you're spending that amount of money to get the productivity you want, what else, what's going on?
Yeah.
There's maybe a culture component where you could say this person is super successful and super productive, but they're a bad influence on other employees. And yeah, that's a conversation worth having. Like you could go down that, and I've had to at certain points in my own company with my own employees where I had to fire people who were productive because they were cancerous to the culture. But that's a 80-20 rule. That's a 20 thing. That's not the majority.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a great point. And I think it's something that a lot of people don't think about when they first start hiring.
Yeah.
I want to shift gears a little bit into the new year.
2023.
So we are day 2, right, of the new year as we record this. And nothing is filling my timeline more on social media than New Year's resolutions and comments about New Year's resolutions. I disagree with New Year's resolutions. I'm for New Year's resolutions. Here's my New Year's resolution. Here's not my New Year's resolution. Here's a joke about how I'm going to have no New Year's resolution. Whatever. It's just nonstop commentary on New Year's resolutions. What I wanted to kind of pick your brain about is, from your perspective, right? It's kind of the same pattern every single year, right? Tons of people have all these big goals. Majority of them probably do not deliver or come even close to those goals. Why do you think people have such a difficult time keeping their New Year's resolutions?
I think it comes down to accountability, a lack of accountability to yourself. It's the same reason why I think entrepreneurship is so hard. When you're a business owner or an entrepreneur, you're in charge. You don't have a manager. You don't have a boss. You don't have mommy and daddy to say, hey, Glenn, it's time to go to work. Glenn, wake up. You got a call in 10 minutes.
That would be nice.
Yeah, right? I wish maybe I could get my mom to move in with me and
put her on
help me
payroll.
out. But yeah, exactly. But no, I think that's the reality. And it's so easy to make excuses. That was something that, when I'm seeing all the same stuff that you're saying, and I'm looking at some of the goals I have for this year, it is so easy to make excuses to not do things. And sometimes they're really good excuses. I am so sick today. There's no way I can work out. Oh, I'm so busy. I can't read a book today. It's so easy to make an excuse. So like, I think to overcome that, you have to have radical accountability to yourself or get someone to help you and keep you accountable.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And I think, like you said, life happens to everybody. You have things that come up that if you told somebody this is the reason why I didn't do this, they'd probably be like, oh, that's understandable. You're sick. Or, you got snowed into your house like me. Something along those lines. And, I think that's a very, very true element of it. I think another element of it too that I've been kind of thinking about is a lot of these people are setting New Year's resolutions where they're making dramatic changes to their life, right? They wake up at 9 or 10 in the morning and they really want to wake up at 6, and they want to go to bed at 10 o'clock at night. They're usually going to bed at 1 or 2 in the morning, right? They have these massive radical changes. Yeah. I think they're programmed for bad habits.
That's a big one too. I think sometimes I'm all about huge goals and like making those huge changes and getting to big milestones, but we also have to be realistic at the end of the day, right? Like
Yeah.
it has to be achievable. It can't be impossible, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I think that also segues into this other question I wanted to discuss with you. Going into the new year, what do you feel like has the most potential for someone to grow their business in 2023? What do you think right now, if people are listening to this and they're asking themselves, what should I be doing? What has the most potential? What's the smartest way to grow my business in 2023? And maybe on the flip side, what's one of the more inefficient ways to grow my business? Um, what
Great
should that
question.
strategy be?
That's a really great question. So I'll share kind of my personal experience on my journey to seven figures is I was almost and still am a huge bottleneck to the growth of my company. Um, I'm constantly like, obviously, I run uh, a staffing company, so like when it comes to outsourcing and delegation, like it's a core concept for me. Um, I've been doing this for years, and I still struggle with it. So when I hear people say like, just read a comment on Facebook this morning where someone said I'm really bad at delegating. I struggle with delegation. I hear that every day, and I'm talking to agents, entrepreneurs, business owners. Um, you have to learn to get out of your own way. You're capping yourself. You can't do everything. You only have 24 hours in a day. You have to sleep. You have to eat. You have to see your family. And if you honestly think you can just burn the candle at both ends forever, you're insane. That's not how you get to seven figures. That's not how you get to eight figures. You get there by replacing yourself, by scaling, by delegation. Um, that's that's the number one thing I think you guys can do. And yeah, you could say I'm biased. There's other things that maybe you could focus on, but from my point of view and from all the business owners that I get to speak with every single day, all year, year after year, I think we're all really just standing in our own way of getting to that seven figure mark at the end of the day.
I think that's so true, and I think you just hit it right on the head. Um, I could even use myself as an example.
Yeah.
We've known each other for many years now.
Yeah.
For probably the first couple of years that we would have conversations, we would be talking about something, and and you'd be like, what did you do today? I'd be like, oh well, I did this, I did this, I did this, like 15 different things that could be considered all different hats at the same time. And I think it was you that really helped me understand that I can't be all things at all times if I'm going to grow my business. And I think me hiring more, me taking more off my plate, me automating more, outsourcing more has been the big difference for my company.
You've grown significantly from staffing wise. From the you probably what doubled? Would you say you doubled your staff? Maybe even
Yeah.
more?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah. And I think, it's, I always tell people, I remember the first time I hired my first employee, and my first person that I hired was in the office, um, obviously stateside. And, I had this fear, because I at the time, I remember I added up what her salary monthly was going to be, and it was like about the same as my mortgage at the time. I had a smaller house,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
not anymore. But that for some reason that just scared the hell out of me. I'm like, oh, this is like a recurring bill. It's like I'm taking on another house. That's kind of the way I was looking at it. And it was such a hard mental shift for me to get over. But once I did, I think, the next year after I hired her, my company, we grew probably 30-40% that year. The year after that, we hired another person. We doubled in revenue. Um, it's just people see the short term and they don't necessarily consider the long term. One thing I
Right.
talked about at the summit this year, at my conference this year, when I was on stage, was um, people are looking at it as an expense and not an investment. And I think
Right.
there's a lot of people that fall into that trap.
Oh yeah. That's a huge, huge trap that people fall into is that paying my employees taking money out of my own pocket. And if I believed that again, I wouldn't be here today. You know, it's an investment, it's an ROI. It's the same thing as, you know, software or technology or, you know, infrastructure or anything else that you would invest in your business and you're hoping to get an ROI on. And any other way of looking at it is just completely flawed.
You mentioned scaling a second ago.
Yeah.
What goes into scaling for anybody that's listening to this that might be like, that's what I want. I want to scale
Yeah.
my business. What does the process look like that people might not think about when they're starting that process?
That's a great question. And depending on the business, scaling looks different for everybody. Sometimes, you know, kind of like what we just talked about, Christian's increased his staff significantly, but at the same time, you know, maybe someone else might not need as many staff to scale, right? So it kind of depends on your business, but like the core concept of scaling is, I talked about previously, getting out of your own way. It's figuring out these tasks that you're doing or that needs to be done that you haven't gotten to yet. Which personally I recommend doing the tasks so you understand it before you delegate it.
Yes.
But you need to essentially be able to replicate that task and have someone else do it and completely remove yourself. Like that's the core concept of scaling through delegation. Obviously you can scale through like technology and other means, and I'm a huge fan of that. You know, elimination, automation, delegation. That's my big three. But that's the core. It's really that simple core concept. And I'll give you guys kind of a peek behind the curtain. Again, we're on the 7-figure podcast or bust, 7 figures or bust. When you get to a higher level, you know, Christian mentioned I have 100. It's actually getting closer to 200 employees as of today, which is, it's wild. It's wild to have that many people involved. And we just had a huge Christmas party in the Philippines. Unfortunately, I wasn't there, but
did you zoom in?
I didn't zoom in. I did a pre-recorded video for them, and they did a bunch of videos of the event. It looked super fancy, which I wasn't anticipating. It was like a black and white party, but when you get to a higher level, you have more employees, you have more going on, higher revenue, your scaling changes from these basic entry level tasks like appointment setting, data entry. You know, obviously at Higher Heroes we do a ton of stuff that's like really basic to help people out. But when you're a higher earner and your company's bigger and you have more people, the scaling becomes, how can I delegate like management positions? Like, and I always, again, talking about my title here at Lead Heroes, my official title is founder and CEO. And previously I was president of Lead Heroes. And I made that change on purpose, not because I thought CEO sounded cooler or sexier, but I realized I had to build an executive team to run a company at 7 figures. I can't do this by myself, you guys. And if I tried to say it was all, like, that'd be the biggest lie ever, right? If I was on this podcast today, you guys, and I'm saying I'm doing all this myself, like I'm CEO, I'm the manager, like I'm crushing all these tasks, like that's such a huge. I have a team, guys. I have a team that I've built for years, that I've hand sculpted many people into very specific management roles that I interact with on a daily basis for hours and hours a day. And that's how I got to 7 figures. And that's what scaling beyond 7 figures is going to look like for me. It's going to be continuing to build and sculpt out executive management positions within my company. And the faster I do that, I think the faster my overall revenue will grow.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, you know, you showed with me one time, you know, kind of like your hierarchy in your business. And that was a big eye opener for me, because I was like,
my org chart.
Yeah.
I sent you my org chart.
And
it's huge, isn't it?
It's ridiculous.
It's like a genealogy tree. Like if anybody's done genealogy, it's like you go back to like 1600s, right? It's like like that was my org chart, you guys.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it was. Yeah. And you know, he's all of Glen's, you know, relatives basically on there. And
no nepotism here. That's a lie.
But no, it was a big eye opener for me, because it was like, okay, this is where we need to get to. We need to get to where, you know, I think that's the next step for us, you know, is to get to even the next step, the
So
next level.
do you want me to just like attack you right here? Like throw
Let's
something at
go.
you? Yeah,
Let's
let's do
go.
it.
Let's go.
Right? This is the Seven Figures or Bust podcast. Um, so like having someone who could manage the day to day in your agency and train new agents, that is like an executive leadership role within your business that would completely change your life and change your top line revenue.
Yeah.
That's you getting out of your own way. That's you scaling your business, right? As someone who can handle that. And now what's Christian focused on? Well, now Christian's focused on driving new agents into his agency. Now Christian's focused on the summit and how big the summit can get. Now Christian's focused on his multiple content creation, platforms that he delivers on a consistent basis. So like that's the sort of thing I'm talking about. And I don't, when I say I'm attacked, like I have that same, there's a ton of stuff management wise that I know I need to fix, that I know I need to delegate to other people, that I have capable people in house that can do it, and I still don't do it. So like when I attack you like that, I'm not like trying to like put you down because I have the same thing, but that's just like offhand. I just wanted to point that out. Like that's an example for our listeners.
No, and I think it's great. I think it's great. And I think it's spot on, because I think it's something that, you've helped me realize prior to this conversation that it's something that's needed. And, it's kind of, the next step for us, to kind of continue to that kind of growth. There's only so much we can grow where we're hiring people and I'm managing everybody.
Yes.
Right. That's what I've learned. That's what I've come to the realization of. And I think it's something that people need to hear, because I think there's levels to this game called growing a business, right? Like
super high level.
You start at ground zero, basically, right? With the person that has, they just got their EIN number, they just got their LLC registered for, they have no employees, no revenue, and they're starting at ground zero. That person's problems and challenges are different from a person that's maybe at the level I'm at, or maybe at the level that you're at, or maybe the level that, you go up levels and levels and levels. You have companies like Amazon have different problems than problems we have by a mile, so the problems, to me, as you grow your business, they just turn into different challenges, and that's it. Different problems need to be solved. And I think that's what people need to hear that are trying to grow a business.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like a lot of times the fundamentals stay the same as you continue to grow and you're getting higher levels, new employees, more revenue. The fundamental concepts like cash flow and money management and training and hiring, like a lot of those fundamentals stay the same. It just changes though as you get bigger, as you grow. And it's fun. I love problems. I've always really enjoyed problem solving, and at the end of the day, I feel like really successful business owners are just really good problem solvers, right? Isn't that what we do? Like, could be I'm solving your problem, maybe I'm solving my own problems, but that's all I do all day, every day. It's the Rubik's Cube of growing a 7-figure business, is constantly solving these equations as these problems are being thrown at you.
Yep. 100%. Final question I want to ask you.
Okay.
And then we'll close this thing out.
I love it.
Talk to me about your perspective of the FTX Sam Bankman-Fried situation.
Oh my God, this is so left field. I had no idea this was coming. Mazel tov on the questions. I gave Christian some cannon fire before about these possible questions. I had no idea any of these were coming for the listeners, by the way. I don't even know if I could. This is like,
where to begin?
Yeah, this is like, it's like you put me in the room with like a nuclear bomb that had like a minute on it, and I'm like, how do I?
Okay,
like,
let's disarm
which wire am I going to clip first here?
It's never the red wire. It's never the red wire.
So here's my headline takeaway on this whole thing, and I'm not going to try to tell you guys I'm an expert on this whole situation, but I have listened, read, and watched a fair amount of content around it. I also find it fascinating the number of people involved. It's almost Theranos level, where like, if you guys know Theranos, that's the fake blood company where they said they could test your blood on a speck of blood. They could do 300 different tests. Still not true today, and they claimed they could do it 10 years ago. So what it tells me, though, this FTX scandal is there's probably a lot of companies out there that either cannot deliver on what they say they're doing, or it's smoke and mirrors, right? I mean, and to have, I guess another piece of it too would be like, how, because like it was a multi-billion-dollar company, right? We're talking about billions of dollars. So how did they get there? Well, branding. I think they branded themselves really well. I was watching Major League Baseball, dude. You remember this? Did you watch any baseball this year? Probably not.
No, not even a second.
FTX, bro. FTX was on
the jerseys, on the
or the umpire. I think the umpires, if I remember correctly.
Oh.
So, but you're seeing I was seeing FTX all over. I was also on the platform, you guys. Did you have an FTX account?
No, never.
Luckily, I didn't have hardly anything in there. That's the good news. The good news is I was, but their platform also, like, it was attractive, simple to use, easy to set up. Like, it was the behind the scenes that was kind of all smoke at me. I mean, I'd love can I deflect you? Can you take over here on the detonation of the, like, what would you say is your takeaway of this whole situation?
So I think, as you said, the number of people that were involved, from celebrity endorsements, the Kevin O'Learys of the world, the Tom Brady's of the world.
Yeah.
Tom Brady's the big one, right? And that to me, and you had companies like BlackRock behind it. Like you had
everybody.
These companies and these organizations that don't take risks. They only make decisions that they're going to win, right? They don't spend money on things that are risky.
I'd say Tom Brady's falls in that same category, right? Like Tom Brady's not going to get behind something that's just not an absolute win, right?
Yes.
Like you can't lose. Yeah,
have to.
Have to.
And so I think that was the biggest surprise to me. I think I studied up a little bit on kind of the history of it all, and the thing that was the most crazy to me was their competitor company. I don't even remember the name of it at the time, but the competitor company, maybe. I think that sounds right.
Yeah.
But the competitor company had, the founder of that company and Sam Bankman-Fried, they have some beef, and they get into some Twitter beef. And he puts that out on his Twitter, the competitor company CEO, that they're insolvent. And everyone's like, oh, he's just talking shit. He's just, trying to be. This was days before they filed for bankruptcy.
Imagine going insolvent because you started a Twitter fight with someone. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
Like, imagine going bankrupt and going to jail, all because you couldn't let a Twitter comment go. Like, I hope someone holds on to that this year. Remember that Twitter comment, Facebook, social media, it might drive you to jail and potentially make you insolvent. So be careful out there, you guys.
I guess my biggest takeaway of it, though, and this is just my 2 cents of it, I have been very, very skeptical of cryptocurrency ever since it was really a thing. I know there's been people that have made a tremendous amount of money with Bitcoin and other types of coins, things like that. But I feel like my message to people that are investors is, if you're going to invest into anything in the crypto space, be fully prepared to lose that money potentially, because it's unpredictable. Nobody can predict what it's going to happen.
Highly speculative. Here's the other thing that I think is noteworthy of this whole topic, since we're talking to Christian Brindle here. As an influencer, does this not speak to the power of having influencers on your brand, like on your team, marketing for you? I mean, again, we've seen this now time and time again. You get someone like Tom Brady to sign on, and again, a safe name, a safe brand, someone who doesn't take risks, and someone else sees that, they essentially don't do their due diligence. They're like, oh, I don't need to do any DD. I don't need any due diligence. Tom Brady does this. They're worth billions of dollars. I don't care. We're in. Done. Sign it. Here's the check, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
I think it really speaks to the power of influence, and specifically in modern times with technology, and it's wild to see what that type of power can do.
It's interesting too that you bring up the influencers, because what I came to find out was all the influencers like on the finance side for and YouTube were promoting it. People like Meet Kevin and Graham Stephan and all these guys, promoting it, and they took a bunch of heat for it too, for promoting it. But it's just like they don't. I mean, they're just taking a brand deal, like. But it's crazy to me. It's got to be like, man, I don't even know what you can compare it to. Like maybe the Bernie Madoff scandal, something like that. It's just crazy. Um, One of my questions originally on the lightning round was going to be Sam Bankman-Fried or Bernie Madoff, but I left it. I thought this deserved its own question.
I think I'd have to go with Sam Bankman-Fried for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
The size was way better. I mean, the
Yeah.
stories, guys, like just take a second, and it's worth reading just because it's so unbelievable. You can't even imagine this type of stuff. Like it's stranger than fiction. Just the wildest stuff that you can think of happened.
It's
Just crazy.
I want to be respectful of your time.
Yes.
I want to ask you this final question, and that is, if anybody is maybe in the insurance space, of course, a lot of our
Yeah.
audience is, built up of insurance agents, or maybe they're not. Talk about how people can find out more information on Lead Heroes, lead generation, but also Hire Heroes and the virtual assistant service that Hire Heroes provides, and how can they get more information about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Lead Heroes, our insurance marketing and insurance leads platform. If you go to leadheroes.com, you guys, leadheroes.com, we have a slew of resources on there. A lot of it is free resources to help you sell more insurance. You can also learn about our insurance leads. You can purchase insurance leads right there on the website. You can also contact us or even schedule a call with me through the website. And then also our virtual assistant platform, Hire Heroes. Again, hireheroes.com, hireheroes.com. Essentially, same concept. You can go right there, learn a ton about the service, and also reach out and contact us to sign up. Yeah. Anything else, Christian?
I love it. Thank you for being on today.
Yeah.
This couldn't have been, I couldn't think of a better person to do the first interview of the new show. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate your insight. And I know that we'll be doing plenty more of these as time goes on.
I'm also looking forward to watching and listening to more of these. I think you have a really strong idea and drive and purpose behind this podcast. And that's what I think really propels good podcast forward. So I'm excited to see where this goes and see your guests and listen to these interviews. And yeah, this is going to be quite the year.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you saying that. And guys, if you enjoyed this episode, you know what to do. Like it on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, comment your thoughts down below. If you're listening on a platform that allows you to, leave a 5-star review like Apple. And we'll be back next time. We'll see, and we'll bring you some next level content. Here's to your success and your abundance, and we'll see you at the top, guys. Thanks.